All right, good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining the Co-Admission Showcase event today. This hour, we're featuring the NC State C3 program, and we are really excited. We have our presenter from NC State, and we also have our Wake Tech C3 liaison with us today as well. She's on the screen. Her name is Kimberly, and I'm going to let her go ahead and give an introduction first. So thank you again for joining.
Good morning. Thank you for joining us. I'm excited to talk to you today about the North Carolina State University C3 program, or its official name, the Community College Collaboration Program. My name is Kimberly Smalls McDougall. I am an advisor at Wake Tech, and I'm located on the Western Wake and Public Safety Education campuses. I've put up my contact information on the slide, and so if you have questions about C3, first I do ask that students go to the website, which is c3.ncsu.edu. And then if you have specific questions about how our program is implemented at Wake Tech, please feel free to reach out to me. And you see my email address as well as my office phone number on the screen. Today, we will have a presentation by the director of the North Carolina State C3 program, Mrs. Martha Harmoning. Martha is a proud two-time North Carolina State alum with over 25 years of experience in higher education. And she spent most of her career working for NC State and loves all things Wolfpack. One of her favorite things about working at NC State is the energy of being on the university campus, surrounded by students, faculty, and staff all working together. Martha grew up in a small town in southeastern North Carolina, and she likes to point out that her hometown is smaller than North Carolina State's freshman class. She began her career at NC State as a transfer student, so she understands the unique challenges that comes with being a transfer student. She loves being a part of the C3 team and helping students navigate their transition to North Carolina State. She is a huge advocate for C3 students, and I've enjoyed my time working with her. And without further ado, Martha Harmoning will be presenting to you.
Thank you, Kimberly, and thanks to all of you for being here today. I appreciate the opportunity to share with you a little bit about the NC State C3 program, and we'll be happy to take questions that you may have at the end of this presentation. So again, my name is Martha Harmoning, and I am representing the NC State C3 program, which you see visually represented here with our current partner schools. And of course, what's important for you to know is that Wake Tech is one of our key C3 partners, and in fact, each year we have more students at Wake Tech in the C3 program than we do at any other of our individual partner schools. So we're very happy to have this partnership with Wake Tech and very proud of the work that we're doing with Kimberly and her supporting team at Wake Tech. And we can go on. So just to give you a little bit more information about what the C3 program is, I think the key thing to keep in mind is that our program is more than just a guaranteed admission program. It truly is a comprehensive support program that's designed to help students like you bridge that gap between your time at Wake Tech and your transition to NC State. And the way we provide that support program is by providing a series of academic and other programmatic supports while you're enrolled at Wake Tech in preparation for your transfer to NC State, with the idea being that we're going to prepare you for a more successful transition to NC State, and with that, hopefully a more timely completion of your bachelor's degree. And then, of course, we do offer that guaranteed admission to NC State after you complete either an Associate of Arts, Associate of Science, Associate of Engineering, or either the Associate of Arts or Associate of Science in teacher prep degrees. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as we move through the presentation. Okay. This gives you an indication of who our partners are. I will say that this slide is not fully up to date, But again, we're now at actually 19 regional community college partners. We're in the process of updating our presentations to reflect that. But again, the key point for you is that Wake Tech is one of those partners. And again, through this partnership, we're building a program that really supports students across that transfer lifespan. Okay. In terms of understanding what the benefits of C3 would be to you as a C3 student, where I'd like to start is that as a C3 student, while you are enrolled at Wake Tech pursuing your associate's degree, you are also enrolled at NC State as what we call a non-degree study student. So you have that dual enrollment as a degree-seeking student at Wake Tech and a non-degree seeking student at NC State. And by having that enrollment at NC State, we're able to deliver a number of other technologies and services that would not normally be available to students who were not native NC State students. One of the key pieces of support that we provide while you're enrolled at Wake Tech is that you have academic advising every semester with an NC State advisor. For most students, that is a C3 advisor. We do have some students who are in specialty majors where they might also be advised even earlier by someone in their ultimate academic department at NC State. But each semester we will meet with you to go over not only the coursework you're taking at Wake Tech toward your associate's degree program, but beyond that, we're looking at how that coursework aligns with your intended major at NC State, to make sure that the courses you're taking at Wake Tech will in fact not just transfer to NC State, but more specifically will count toward your intended major at NC State. And one of the ways that we're able to individualize that advising is because you are enrolled as an NC State student, you have full access to all of our online advising, course planning, and degree audit tools. So as a C3 student enrolled at Wake Tech, you actually have an NC State degree audit. And every semester that you complete coursework at Wake Tech, we go ahead and apply that transfer credit to your NC State degree audit so that in real time, you're able to see how the coursework you're taking at Wake Tech is already counting toward your NC State degree. And you can literally check off the courses that you need to graduate from NC State, see what you have left, and what you would have left once you actually transfer to NC State. Also, during your time at Wake Tech, you're invited to participate in a number of events where you can network and connect with other C3 students, not only Wake Tech students, but students from all of our other partner schools. And we do this through a combination of virtual and in-person events. We know that not every student will be able to come to NC State's campus. And so even before COVID, we were offering a number of our workshops via Zoom, which is the platform that NC State uses for virtual and remote meetings and teaching. And so we're continuing to deliver options both virtually and in person as a way for you to begin to navigate NC State's technologies and resources so that when you actually transfer to your degree program at NC State, you're already familiar with things like our MyPack system, which is similar to the self-service system that you have at Wake Tech. You're able to use our Moodle, which is our learning management platform that we use, again, similar to Blackboard. And all of our other advising support services, but you're also connected with other students. So you have a set of students that you know and can connect with as you're making that transition to NC State. So again, a lot of what we do through those events is designed to really help connect you to NC State before you actually get to our campus, so that when you do transfer, that you don't have that same sense of transfer shock that a lot of transfer students do when they have that first semester at their new institution. Once you get to NC State, we actually continue to support you as a student. We hope that you will get connected within your individual academic department, but we want to continue to be a source of support and resource for you. And so in addition to including you in events that we have specifically for C3 students at NC State, you're invited to a lot of these other events that we do with all of our C3 students, but you also have specialized opportunities within C3. For example, we are currently funding about 25 students in paid research positions. So from their very first semester of enrollment at NC State, they're working alongside faculty members in our academic departments on research. Maybe they're actually helping to support campus IT initiatives. We have students working actually for our Office of Information Technology, providing IT support for the campus. So depending upon what your career interests and academic interests are, there might be opportunities for you not only to gain valuable research and work experience, but to actually earn a paycheck at the same time. And that's a unique opportunity that we're able to fund through C3. And again, of course, one of the key benefits that we know students focus on is the fact that you do have that guaranteed admission to NC State after completion of one of those approved degrees with a 3.0 or better GPA at Wake Tech. It is important to note that we do not guarantee admission into a specific academic major at NC State. There are some majors that will still be more competitive, and there will be additional coursework that may be required. So as part of that advising connection, we will be working with you to identify what those additional requirements might be so that you can be competitive for your first choice major. But we also work with students during that advising period of your enrollment at Wake Tech to help you identify alternatives if it looks like you're not going to be competitive for your first choice major. And as I mentioned, again, we do continue to support you up until your graduation from NC State. Okay. And as we look at the benefits again of C3, this is one of our students, Ben Falero, who attended Central Carolina Community College and will actually be graduating with his first degree from NC State this May, and then he's finishing up a second degree after that. But as he points out here, it's the connections that C3 helped him make to people on campus and opening doors that he wouldn't have known about had he not been a part of the C3 program before transferring. And that's really a key element of what we hope to provide to you, is to build those connections to our campus. Okay. And then we see here from one of your own Wake Tech alums, who's also now an NC State alum. She graduated in December, Jocelyn. Again, the fact that C3 helped her realize her dream of becoming an NC State graduate as the first in her family to go to college. And again, now she's graduated. So again, an opportunity to open up doors for students who might not have thought that a four-year degree or an NC State degree was initially within their reach, but see this as an opportunity to pursue both an associate's degree at Wake Tech and then a bachelor's degree with us. Okay. And then one more comment from one of our current students. If you're on the call and currently living in Raleigh, then it's not quite the same. Raleigh's not a small town, but a lot of our students do come from smaller communities in North Carolina. And so starting at a school as large as NC State seems a bit overwhelming to them. And I can relate to that because I was one of those. And so again, having that opportunity to transition from a community college where there might be more personal connections and in a smaller environment, and then make that transition to the larger university setting at NC State. Okay. In terms of understanding if C3 might be a good fit for you, it is important to note that C3 is a program designed to serve students from low to moderate income backgrounds. We are looking for students who have demonstrated potential for academic success, and you're probably thinking, well, what does that mean? Well, ultimately, we want you to be able to graduate from Wake Tech and from NC State. And so we'll be looking at your previous academic record to see that you have demonstrated the potential to do the work required of you at the college level. But beyond that, we're also looking for evidence of those unseen in terms of being on paper skills, like your motivation, your perseverance, your ability to push through challenging circumstances. Many of our students are working to help support their families while they're also trying to go to school, or they're caring for younger siblings or aging parents or grandparents. And so the ability to balance all of that and still do well in high school or in the community college speaks to that potential for academic success and beyond. New, for those of you who might be currently high school students, this is relatively new for C3. We do now allow early college high school students to apply for the C3 program. But the caveat to that is you do need to be doing a 5-year early college program. So if you're finishing in 4 years, then you would not be eligible to apply for C3. But if you're going the 5-year track, then you would be eligible. Generally speaking, we're also looking for students who are planning to attend at the community college level on a full-time or close to full-time basis. We know that life happens, and again, a lot of our students are balancing work with school, and so students might not be able to be enrolled full-time every semester, but at least close to full-time. And so again, if that's something that's in your mind, then that might be an indication that C3 is a good fit for you. We do especially encourage students who come from first-generation backgrounds where they are the first in their family to pursue a 4-year degree. And again, students from rural communities, military connected students, etc., would especially be encouraged to apply. And it seems obvious, but I do need to point out that your ultimate goal should be to get a degree from NC State. So it is important to make sure that your career goals align with our majors. If you say to me, I want to apply for C3, but I want to become a nurse, then that doesn't align very well because NC State does not offer a degree in nursing. So you do want to make sure that your ultimate career goals and academic majors align with the degrees that NC State offers. Okay. In terms of the application process and who is eligible to apply for C3, beyond those parameters that I just mentioned, if you are currently enrolled in high school, then you would be eligible to apply to the C3 program. You could still apply to start C3 this fall of 22. If you are a high school student who has CCP work, either from the past or previously enrolled, you're still eligible as long as you have fewer than 30 semester hours of college transfer CCP work. If you are currently enrolled at Wake Tech, you would also be eligible to apply for C3 as long as you are within your first sort of full year. And again, that would mean you have, at the end of this semester, you'll have under 30 semester hours or right around 30 semester hours, leaving you with at least 30 semester hours toward your associate's degree. Again, you must be a North Carolina resident for tuition purposes in order to be eligible for C3. And to reiterate that if you are an early college high school student, you do have to be completing that 5th year. Okay. And in terms of the application process and required materials, we have our own NC State C3 application, which you complete fully online, and you can upload all of your application materials directly to our website. We say we would like an official copy of your high school transcript, but for the initial application, we will accept an unofficial copy, so you can upload that directly to your C3 application. We also need copies of any college transcripts, so if you do have either dual enrollment, CCP work, or if you're currently enrolled, we will need your Wake Tech transcripts as well. As part of the application, you will be asked to complete 2 very short answer, I even hate to say essay because they're not as long as an essay sounds, where you're telling us your story. You're telling us something about your experience as a student and also your interest in being in the C3 program. There is a section related to family background, including family income information. That's just self-reported information. And then the standard community standards part of the application that's required of all UNC system schools. And it is important to note there is no application fee for the C3 application, and therefore there's no process for requesting a fee waiver if that's something you would need to request. And you'll also note that we do not require standardized test scores. We were not requiring test scores before COVID. I know a lot of schools have gone test optional since COVID, but C3 has never required standardized test scores. And again, all of this can be submitted online through our C3 application. Okay. I will just point out again, there are a few differences for early college high school students. One final time, you must be doing that 5th or 13th year. You are required to submit a letter of recommendation from either someone on the early college side or the Wake Tech side. You could apply as early as your junior year or your third year of high school if you are an early college student, and it should be no later than your senior year, again, with the anticipation that you will have a fifth year beyond that. When you then move from your early college, high school, and Wake Tech enrollment to NC State, you will be considered a transfer student. That is an important distinction because typically early college, high school students can choose if they are applying as a first year or a transfer applicant, but through C3, you will be considered a transfer student, and therefore you're eligible for any of the transfer student scholarships, but you're not eligible for any first year scholarships. And then again, as a transfer student, you would not be required to live on campus. So again, those are things that are in addition or additional consideration for early college, high school students. Okay. And then in terms of the selection process on our end, we are, as I mentioned earlier, looking for highly motivated students who come from a variety of different backgrounds, who do have that demonstrated potential for academic success, and who, as I mentioned earlier, have really shown levels of motivation and perseverance that would indicate, again, that college success. We've had students who maybe didn't have the best high school record. In fact, we've had students who graduated from high school with less than a 2.0, but who then enrolled at the community college, had a really strong first semester there, are now doing very well and are a part of the C3 program. And some of those students are actually now on our campus, and one has actually graduated. So when we talk about academic success, it doesn't necessarily mean that you always had the best high school record, but if you have, through that perseverance and motivation, turned things around and are now doing well at the community college level, then I would definitely encourage you to think about C3. It is competitive admission to the program because we don't have an unlimited number of spots, and we do admit based on community college. Now, this slide says that we typically admit about 15 students from each community college each year, but because of Wake Tech's large size and because we just draw so many students from Wake Tech anyway, we do allow more students from Wake Tech. So we'll typically take around 25 students per year from Wake Tech into the C3 program. So as part of the application process, you're not competing with every single applicant for the C3 program, you're competing with other applicants who would be at Wake Tech. Okay. And then some important dates, because we're in the middle of our application cycle now. If you think you might be interested in applying for C3 for this upcoming year, which would mean you would start your enrollment in C3 this fall, while also starting your enrollment at Wake Tech, or perhaps continuing your enrollment in your associate's degree program, you will want to submit an application by June 1st if you are interested in applying for C3 this fall. We do operate on a rolling admission basis, so you could be notified much sooner than July 1st, depending upon when you apply, but we will have our decisions out by July 1st for those students who do apply by June 1st. At this point, we're already at that May 1 date, pretty much. So if you are admitted into the C3 program for this fall, we will allow you up until August 1st to decide if you're going to accept our offer of enrollment. But you can certainly let us know even sooner than that if you're prepared to do so. Okay. And then finally, if you want to learn more about the C3 program, then obviously you can ask questions at the conclusion of this presentation. You can also follow us on either of our social media platforms, Instagram or Facebook, and you can certainly check out our website. Kimberly gave you that address earlier. It's also listed here, and then you can certainly email our office as well. So with that, this concludes the formal part of my presentation, and we will now field any questions that you might have.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and start with the Q&A portion, and I'll just jump right into it. The first question is, are international students eligible for the C3 program?
That's a great question. The simple answer is maybe. The key point is, would you qualify as a North Carolina resident for tuition purposes? So if you have a status, if you hold a visa, for example, an H1 or H4 visa, that allows you to be considered a resident for tuition purposes, then yes, you could apply for C3. If you have a visa such as an F visa, a traditional student visa, or J visa, then you would not be eligible for C3, because the key point is not so much your citizenship or visa status as much as it is how that impacts your ability to be classified as a resident for tuition purposes. So that's the point that we evaluate in terms of whether or not an international student can be considered. So if you have already been through the process with RDS and have been established as a resident for tuition purposes, then yes, you would be able to apply for C3.
Thanks for that. And is admission to C3 dependent on parents' income?
That is one of the factors that we look at, yes. So we are looking at what we call adjusted gross income of the family, but we also take into consideration extenuating circumstances. Sometimes a family's income might look higher on paper, but since that last tax return, for example, there's been a job loss in the family, or there have been significant changes because of medical expenses, etc. So there is an opportunity within the application to speak to those other extenuating circumstances. But yes, that is one of the factors in consideration for C3. Unless you are an independent student. If you're an older student, you're not living at home with your parents, then that parental income would not be a factor.
And then the next question is there a range you can provide to describe the low moderate income?
Sure. So generally speaking, we're looking for students whose family income would be $110,000 or less, and that's really based on a dual parent income in particular. We have many of our students come from single parent backgrounds, and so that sounds like maybe a really high number, but that's because we're also factoring in those situations where there might be two parent incomes, but that's generally the number that we're looking at is $110,000 per year or less.
Okay. What is the biggest factor that will get a student turned away from the C3 program?
Oh, that's a good question. So there's not a single factor necessarily. We are looking at the totality of your application. Obviously, your academic performance would be a key piece of the review process. If you are a student who, for example, as I mentioned earlier, maybe doesn't have a super great high school record, we might say you're not really competitive now, but go to Wake Tech, give us a semester's worth of work, and we'll reconsider. So that academic performance is a key piece. The income level is also a key piece. And then we're also looking at your understanding of what how C3 can benefit you, and that you really have an interest in being in this program and the programmatic support that we offer, as opposed to just looking for a way to NC State, but that you're really interested in the program itself and what we have to offer.
Just to dig deeper into that question, the following question the student is asking, if they're not admitted as a regular student, is C3 a good option, and what would they need to show moving forward to be a strong candidate?
So that's a good question. We actually do have a number of students who enter C3 after being denied first-year admission. On the flip side, we also have a number of students in C3 who were offered first-year admission and turn it down because they see the value in starting at their local community college, saving money. The tuition at Wake Tech per year is significantly less than the tuition at NC State. So a lot of students recognize the financial value of starting at Wake Tech. They also understand the value of starting while Wake Tech as a whole is large, they still operate much more like a smaller school because their class sizes tend to be smaller. And so students value the opportunity to be in those first and second year classes with smaller class sizes. And so we have students on both sides that were both admitted into NC State and decide to pursue C3 because of the advantages of starting at the community college. And then we do have students who were denied first year admission. So you could be denied first year admission and still be a very good candidate for C3. One of the criteria that we've just talked about would still be considered, things like the family income, your interest in the actual program. But with C3, we have our selection criteria academically is not going to be the same as the standards utilized by the first year admission process. So we have a bit more flexibility in our admission selection in terms of evaluating that potential for success. For a lot of our first year students, it's not whether or not they can be successful at NC State. It's really a supply and demand issue, if you will, because there's 40,000 students applying for about 5,000 spaces in the freshman class. So it's just driven by that extreme level of competition. So the fact that you were denied first year admission does not necessarily mean you would not be a good candidate for C3. In fact, you might be a great candidate for C3. And what you should do is submit the C3 application. So your standard application that you submitted for first year admission we can't transfer that over to C3. We don't evaluate that again. There is a separate application, so you would need to do, the separate C3 application. But the good news is you already have an account created through undergraduate admissions. You actually can log back into that same account to create your C3 application. So it lives within the same application management system, so it will look very similar, but it is a separate application. And you'll want to do that sometime between now and June 1st.
Okay, so for students who do not qualify for C3 based on family income, is the next best course of action to just complete one of the associate degrees, whether it be associate in engineering, associate in arts, or associate in science, and then transfer?
So yes, I mean, if you are not admitted into C3, but your ultimate goal is to come to NC State, then you certainly can still apply as a traditional transfer student utilizing the traditional undergraduate transfer process. Now, NC State as a whole, through the undergraduate admissions process, does not require students to complete the associate's degree. C3 does. So you would not necessarily have to complete the associate's degree to transfer to NC State, but there are some advantages to completing the associate's degree. Obviously, one of those I've already mentioned, which is the financial incentive of finishing those 2 years at a much reduced tuition rate, but also the community college system and the University of North Carolina system have an agreement that if you complete an Associate of Arts, Associate of Science degree with all C's or better in that coursework, then you're also guaranteed to have all of that coursework transfer to your 4-year UNC system school, in this case NC State, and you are considered to have fulfilled all of your general education requirements. So you're really able to come in and go directly into your academic major at that point. So there are some clear advantages to completing the associate's degree prior to transfer, but it is not a requirement if you're applying as a traditional transfer student. I will point out a couple of things about that I need to mention. C3 is open to students who are interested in pursuing any major at NC State, with one exception, and that is our studio-based majors in the College of Design. If you have an interest in majoring in architecture, graphic design, fashion design, industrial design, then you would not be eligible to apply for C3. You would need to go through the regular transfer process because of the additional steps required with portfolio review and interview and things like that.
Thank you for that. And if you could once again just quickly highlight the advantages overall of the C3 program.
Sure. So number one is the ability to connect to NC State, our people, our resources, learn our technologies, understand the resources that we have available to our students, the ability to learn all of that and connect with people before you actually come to NC State, so that when you do transfer, it's a much more seamless transition. For a lot of transfer students, that first semester is a bit of a shock because they're learning everything new, where to go, how to do things, how to use our technologies, because they're different than what they've had at their community college. As a C3 student, you're exposed to all of that before you ever come to NC State. You also have that direct advising connection every semester that you're enrolled at Wake Tech to really make sure you're staying on track for your NC State degree. And then the ability, as I said, to make connections with other people and other students so that you have a community of students that you already know when you transfer. So the ability to build connections both with NC State people and resources, with other students, and to have that individualized advising as you prepare for your NC State degree are certainly some of the key highlights. And the fact that you always have kind of that support group, if you will, whenever you have questions, both before and after you're transferred to NC State, because we don't stop serving you once you get on our campus.
Okay, and another student is asking if we, actually, I think we've already answered that question. If you don't qualify for the income-based, would it be best to just get the associate's degree? We've already addressed that. And then what is the average GPA for the C3 program looking for graduating high school students?
For graduating high school students, the average is about a 3.5 to 3.6.
Okay.
So if you know anything about our first year admission, that sounds like a very different number than our average first year admission, which is about a 4.0. Actually over a 4.0 on the weighted side.
Okay. And is it possible as a first semester student at Wake Tech to go ahead and apply for C3 using this June 1st?
Absolutely. Absolutely. In fact, now would be the time. And depending upon your high school record, we might be able to make a decision based exclusively on your high school record. But most likely we would want to see your first semester grades at Wake Tech. The good news is the semester's almost over. Those grades will be available very soon. So even if we wanted to wait and see your first semester Wake Tech grades, which again, at this point, we probably would since the semester's almost over, you'd still be able to provide those by the middle of May. So if you're in your first semester at Wake Tech, and this sounds like a program that might be a good fit for you, I would absolutely encourage you to submit that application by June 1st.
And then I think our final question is, can you give an example of some of the types of events that C3 students are allowed to attend with NC State students?
Sure. So, and these are all events that we specifically sponsor within C3, and then I'll talk a little bit beyond that. So some of the in-person events that we've done, which of course, keep in mind, for 2 years, we couldn't do anything in person, and we've only been around. We were only around for not even one full year when COVID hit. So we've had a limited amount of time to do in-person events, but we had an event where students came and were able to tour NC State's dairy, which is where, of course, we produce the milk that makes NC State's world famous. I'm going to say it's world famous Howling Cow ice cream. And then, of course, we finished that event with some Howling Cow ice cream. We've had events on campus that included workshops on time management, career development. We always have food. We can promise you anything that we do, we're going to feed you. And it also usually involves Howling Cow ice cream. We have an event coming up next week where students are coming for a cookout, and then we're going over to watch an NC State baseball game. We've also had students come for basketball games, volleyball games. So we try to include a variety of activities that are both purely social in nature, but also that highlight resources at NC State. For example, our career development workshop that we did a few weeks ago, we had a resume writing workshop because that's a critical piece of A lot of people need a resume, but don't know how to write one. So we did a workshop on resume writing. So those are just some of the examples that we've had for in-person events. Our virtual events have included workshops on financial aid, exploring majors at NC State. We have one that we do. So you think you want to be an engineer, where one of our engineering faculty talk to students about what engineering at NC State looks like and what it takes to be competitive for engineering. And we run similar workshops to that for a number of our other majors at NC State, pre-vet students, education, you name it. So a lot of workshops centered around exploring our majors at NC State. And then when you are enrolled at Wake Tech and have that NDS enrollment at NC State, that actually also allows you to participate in other campus activities. So if there are other NC State campus organizations that you want to get involved with, anything from marching band to any of our student organizations, you are able to participate in those organizations because of that NDS enrollment at NC State.
Are military veterans eligible?
Absolutely. In fact, highly encouraged. I think I mentioned that earlier. And I will just say, just to kind of get this out there, in case you have friends or family beyond the scope of the Raleigh area, one of our new initiatives within the C3 program is actually a program called C3 Military Connect, where we're partnering with the community colleges located in our military base communities. So those that serve Fort Bragg, Seymour Johnson, Camp Lejeune, et cetera. Especially targeting military veterans and their dependents or active duty service members. But at our other partner schools like Wake Tech, we would absolutely encourage military veterans to apply for C3. And not only do you get to plug in with the C3 activities, but you also get to plug in with our Military and Veteran Services Organization and participate in all of the support and resources and activities that they would have for military connected students on our campus.
Okay, sort of a controversial question. Why is the criteria for transfer students from C3 lower than first year students from high school admissions?
Well, the transfer requirements are not really lower. I mean, if you're talking about the requirements for admission into the program, we are just a different program, period. We're just a different program that's really designed to promote access and success among students who've often been under-resourced through the educational system in North Carolina. It's just a different program that serves a different need for the university. So if you have additional questions, you're welcome to reach out to the Office of Undergraduate Admissions.
Oh, sorry. Another question just came in. Is the 110K a hard number?
As I mentioned earlier, we will take into consideration other extenuating circumstances that might impact a student's or family's financial situation. So it is not necessarily a hard and fast number, depending upon your individual circumstances.
All right, thank you so much, Martha. Thank you, Kimberly, for being here. We are going to give students maybe another minute to ask any final questions. I've also put in the announcement box, there is a survey for students who are in attendance to complete just to give us some feedback about this event. But we are really, really appreciative of you both being able to join us today, and Mike for moderating those questions. I think there's two more that popped up. One of them, I think, Martha, you might have already touched on a little bit. Could you just remind us what the C3 GPA, what GPA C3 is looking for community college students?
For a community college student, we would generally be looking at a 3.0 and better in your community college coursework.
Okay, that's what I thought. All right. and it looks like the rest were more about thank yous. If they have questions about that income requirement, can they reach out to you or sorry, to the office directly kind of about
Absolutely.
that? Okay.
Absolutely.
All right. So I'm not seeing any more come in. We appreciate you again so much. I'll go ahead and end the live event. And if you have questions, just reach out to that C3 email. I believe I put it in the chat and it was also featured on the event today. This event will be recorded, so if you were unable to join from the very beginning, it'll be posted to our Wake Tech Academic Advising YouTube channel within the next week, so you'll still be able to watch it there. Again, thank you for all who joined today, and have a great rest of your day.